The second law of thermodynamics states that the state of entropy of the entire universe as an isolated system will increase over time. The second law also states that the change in the entropy in the universe can never be negative. That's the basic idea of the second law of thermodynamics, which I'm sure most of us have heard in our physics class or something along those lines. The basic idea is that in all closed systems, everything becomes more chaotic as time moves on. So we are never moving towards order. Although there is a sort of theory, more of a hypothesis, I want to say, based on the lack of evidence around it, that Terence McKenna proposed. This being novelty theory, which I want to go into and have my own little spin on in this video. Novelty theory itself was Terence McKenna's attempt at trying to deconstruct time and view it from an entirely different angle. To quote Terence himself, "Novelty increases as we approach the present moment." In this idea, McKenna makes the claim that as we advance further into the future, our complexity and organization, not only as a species, but in the very cosmos themselves, also increases, which goes completely against the second law of thermodynamics. Some people like to claim that this advancement towards this advanced form of organization, or novelty as Terence referred to it, is just developmental processes unfolding. But then something Terence also likes to ask is, why did these processes choose to unfold to begin with? Why does the universe seem to choose order over chaos? Which spun off his entire novelty theory to begin with. The question, why does the universe prefer order, is what actually got me looking at all of this. I was having a conversation with someone that I met on the internet named Tom Simmons. Highly recommend you check out his channel. I'll definitely leave it in the description because I thought it was fantastic and he encouraged me to do stuff like this. But after having that conversation with him, it got me thinking that novelty theory completely goes against the second law of thermodynamics, if I haven't stated that enough already. This idea of this novel growth, which is this advancement towards this advanced organization and complexity away from chaos, not only it doesn't increase linearly, it increases at an exponential rate, because all complexity before is what we build off of in the present moment. And what Terence took from this is there will eventually be a time where this organization is just building off of itself so rapidly that that's all there will be. And he assumed, without knowing the Mayans at all, that this would happen knowing about the Mayans at all, that this would happen in December of 2012. And it would be some sort of apocalyptic scenario, which is why all of these religions are assuming the end of times are near. I'd also like to point out that that's been happening for decades or centuries now at this point. But in the span of things, centuries isn't that long. In the span of the Earth itself, centuries are mere fractions of a percent. McKenna believed that when these complexities became, to quote him, the overwhelming phenomena in the world of three-dimensional space and time, he referred to this moment as the omega point. This assumption of an omega point was built off of the basic idea that all humans, as a general population, like the general person on the street, feels an increase in the speed of time, as if time itself is speeding up as we grow closer to whatever's in the future. While all of us can confirm that there was no apocalyptic scenarios in 2012, I'm not gonna even get into the theories about how we are all dead and the world ended, or we're just living in a simulation and 2012 actually happened. That's all, no, not today. But we can't completely discount novelty theory. Just because Terence was wrong, or maybe he wasn't wrong, is also something we should consider. It may not be a completely apocalyptic scenario, but I was talking to Tom again just last night, and he added some thoughts on this. That there might have been a shift that happened in 2012, and very vague words were used like energy and things along those lines, which are hard to define the exact meaning of. But that's definitely something I hope to look further into, because I myself, it might just be because I was leaving middle school and growing up as a person around 2012, but there's definitely been a change since that year. On the idea that novelty theory as a whole should not be entirely scrapped, we should realize that the universe itself does tend to prefer order over chaos, contradicting to the second law of thermodynamics. We can observe this, well, not observe, but we know this through after the Big Bang, and all of these particles of extremely high energy particles were smashing against each other and just all over the place, just so much chaos. But then after billions of years, these particles begin to slow down and construct atoms out of what was there. Just mind-blowing. And then those atoms would smash against each other and form together through nuclear fusion and stuff along those lines to form these stars that are the foundations of our entire universe that we know of, at least, that we're able to that we are able to just witness. So we can see just on that example alone how the universe tends to prefer this order, but this complex order. I'm not saying that it's just simple order, like putting a bookshelf, making that look pretty. I mean like these huge, way bigger than any human can imagine, giant systems of not only star clusters, but if we want to take it down to a simpler level, we can look at Earth as a whole. Just the complex evolution of not only biologically, but if we're talking about language and religion and ideologies, this complexity keeps building off of itself again and again and again. So we're reaching this point of this omega point, as Terence would refer to it, or maybe we already have, where this complexity just keeps on building upon itself. We can see this in our modern inventions, and just, I'm filming this on a smartphone. I can communicate with anyone in the world on this device. And that's mind-blowing, considering how far we've come in such a short amount of time, and that growth is only going to be exponential. Okay, here's the part where it gets a little fun. So I think I've discovered a theoretical way for novelty theory and the second law of thermodynamics to coexist together, and it's a bit crazy to say the least, and it's just a fun little thought experiment that I have that I'd like to get into, which is the foundation of this video. So you all saw the quote in the beginning of this video about the second law of thermodynamics, and in that quote itself, it references that the second law of thermodynamics only applies to closed systems. We know that the Earth itself is not a closed system, which could explain why this complex evolution of not only things like technology, but language itself is so incredible, and just this organization at such these advanced levels is happening. Because we are influenced by stuff all over this universe besides Earth itself. Not even just talking about like asteroids or something coming in, but the sun itself is not part of Earth itself. It is part of a completely different system, but the star, the sun, in complexity, together with the Earth in complexity, I don't know what I'm on about anymore, I'm just raving, but this is fun, so I'm gonna keep at it. So as I was saying, the sun and the Earth relies on the sun itself, that making it a closed system. But we could get into that even more, and this idea of this closed system of our universe could be wrong fundamentally in itself. Now, I don't have any way to prove this or anything, that's why it's just some sort of fun thought experiment to have. But what if it was possible that our universe itself, which is far more infinite, well, it's not infinite. I'd like to get that out of the way first. The universe isn't infinite, sorry to burst your bubble, but it's far bigger than you will ever be able to comprehend, or any human will ever be able to comprehend based on what we know now. And while going off of this, the idea of infinity is too easily tossed around. People don't realize how massive or infinity actually is. If you think of the biggest number you can think of, that is nothing compared to infinity. It is practically nothing because you can always go further with infinity. The reason why infinity is so large is because it isn't a number like so many people try to define. The human mind is only capable of thinking in definite things. We're not capable of imagining things that require an infinite amount of processing power to even comprehend. So, getting that infinity out of the way. But we are able to use it in abstract thought experiments like this one right here, so I shall do that. So, to get into how I believe that novelty theory could coexist with the second law of thermodynamics, I'm going to have to think of multiverse theory in this case. If you watch my channel, you probably already know what multiverse theory is. It's, to briefly summarize it, it's the idea that our universe is but one in a collection of this plethora of other universes, and each one of them is different than the last. If we really want to go into this, we could say that there is an infinite amount of universes making up this multiverse. If somehow, some way, these universes are able to affect each other, this would in turn make a closed system non-existent. No universe would be a closed system if it is connected to an infinite amount of other universes. Let's say that our universe is here, this universe is here. I'm making it in 3 dimensions because that's what I'm able to comprehend. So just work with me here. So our universe is here, universe B here. If these universes are connected like that, or like a single connection, and then this universe over here is connected to another universe over here, what that means is those are 3 universes. But if that goes on infinitely, there is no way you'd be able to close that system, or it is infinitely repeating itself. Due to this, the second law of thermodynamics would not apply to this multiverse, because it is not a closed system. In this, because it is not a closed system, novelty theory itself would be able to exist. And we can observe that novelty theory exists here on Earth. I know I started the video with saying there is little evidence, but that's just because I haven't looked into any abstracts or anything like that besides Terrence's work. But we can observe these complex systems building off of themselves everywhere in life. Everywhere. It is extremely difficult to try to ignore the complex systems that keep building off of each other as we reach this epoch in time, as Terrence described it, this omega point where these complex systems are going to be the primary thing that's just happening due to the exponential rate that they are growing at. So, I know this probably sounds like insane science fiction of this multiverse theory and this second law of thermodynamics not applying to the universe itself, but I thought it was a fun little thought that I had that I grabbed onto a little bit to make this video. So this is what goes through my mind when I sleep at night. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'd be really curious to see what all of you think about it in the comments, and feel free to message me on Twitter or something along those lines, or even in the YouTube comments, because I try to be more and more interactive with all the people I talk to. In fact, I started talking to people all over Europe, which is really cool, and I'm hoping to go there. Hopefully this summer. That's what it's looking like. In fact, no, I am going to go there this summer. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to Europe this summer. Thanks, Chris Faulkner. I'm not sure if that's how you say your name, but oh well, live and learn. So, Chris is the one who convinced me to say that I'm doing something instead of just being like, oh, I hope I do that. So, he just posted a video today. Hopefully, I'll link that out as well. These links are gonna be crazy. I have the source to to all of my stuff that I looked up, so that'll all be down in the description. If you want to check it out, make sure to let me know. I'd be glad to keep this conversation going. But, bye.